Well, Israel is continuing to hit Iran's nuclear sites, but one remains a major concern in that country. The site is called Fordo, and it's buried about 300 feet beneath a mountain. And as Ed mentioned, many analysts believe Iran has concealed efforts to work toward nuclear capability there. Associated Press reporter David Rising says destroying Fordo may require American involvement. Take a listen.
Right now, Israel itself lacks the conventional capabilities to take out such a facility, so it would need to talk to the U.S. about the bunker buster.
Now, a bunker buster is a bomb designed to drill deep into the surface before exploding. The American arsenal contains the latest so-called bunker buster bomb, believed capable of drilling 200 feet below the surface before exploding. And the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber is the only bomber configured to carry the bomb. The Air Force says it has successfully tested the B-2 loaded with 2 of the latest bunker buster bombs. Let's bring in Tom Karako, the director of the Missile Defense Project. He joins us live now. Tom, Israeli officials say they attacked because intelligence that Iran is inching closer to full nuclear capabilities. So what do we really know about the Israeli intelligence, and how legitimate is it?
Look, I think it's clear that they believe that this has credibility, that they clearly are sticking their necks out on this. I think you've seen from the IAEA, for instance, in recent weeks talking about how, no kidding, Iran is taking some more steps to get here. Look, I'd say big picture, this has been a long time in the coming. Whether they're doing, as the intel suggests, work on some nuclear trigger or something like that, regardless, this has been a long time in coming. And I think we have to probably give it the benefit of the doubt.
And we're seeing Iran engage in fire with Israel. Can you talk to us about Iran's missile inventory and their capabilities? I mean, how long can they truly stay in this fight?
Look, Iran has the biggest ballistic missile inventory in the Middle East. They're very active. They've got just tons and tons of families of missiles, and they're very proud of that fact. This has been a very significant number of volleys of significant salvos against Israel over the past 5 days or so. It's clearly one of the biggest ballistic missile engagement episodes in history. And so they've probably got, however, hundreds more. They probably started with a couple thousand. Unfortunately, Israel has had to play catch. They in the United States have been intercepting just a whole heck of a lot of these. To some remarkable success. The question, yes, that Iran has a bunch more. The question is how many Israel has been able to either destroy on the ground, find and destroy, or otherwise degrade the ability to launch. And so it doesn't just come down to the number of missiles, but also the number of launchers, and frankly, the number of communication and command and control nodes, and also, frankly, human beings. Israel is going after the full kill chain to include the human beings, whether it be the nuclear scientists, but also lots of IRGC Iranian leadership, so as to complicate the full prosecution of authorization. Now, having said that, they keep doing this on about a daily basis. That perhaps a little bit of a silver lining that this last salvo was smaller, but this is why time is so important, to press the advantage and to get in there and hopefully degrade things even further.
You have said on the Center for Strategic and International Studies podcast, you made the case for more U.S. involvement in this conflict. Ed O'Keefe just reported that Trump is considering joining Israel on the strikes. So why do you think that that's important? Should we really be doing that?
Look, every president for many years on a bipartisan basis has said Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. These facilities, the Fordo facility that you mentioned earlier, these others, Israel's already hit Natanz and other things. This is what, in some ways, we've been waiting for, that we've had these contingency plans in place. And now I think it would be a big mistake to not carry through with that, to leave Iran kind of broken and wounded, but nevertheless with greater resolve. Netanyahu over the weekend gave a speech about basically their objectives, which were twofold, and I would add a third goal, which is he talked about getting rid of the nuclear capability and also presumably changing the regime. I would add that it's going to be really important to make sure that whatever future regime there is, that we sever the close ties between Iran and Russia, which of course has been so important in the Ukraine conflict and in basically giving them cover over the years. It's time to exorcise this cancer from the Middle East, which has been the source of so many problems over the decades.
The cancer you're referring to as the Ayatollah, this regime that currently rules Iran. Is that what you're referring to?
Indeed.
And, Donald Trump earlier today said that he knows where the Ayatollah is and is choosing not to, quote, take him out. But I'm curious if you think that taking out the regime, as he put it, is necessary. And Donald Trump said that, that's not such a good thing because he's still negotiating with the Ayatollah on their nuclear sites.
Right. I guess what I would say is the regime is more than one person. It's the folks around them, and whether he is sort of left intact, physically intact, and so as to be able to negotiate, that may be useful. But I think, frankly, it's the degrading of lots of these military and intelligence leaders that Israel is whacking down the line. There's other political leaders. There's other things besides just Khamenei himself, which was the object of the tweet.
Well, a lot of Iranians would welcome a regime change. Tom Karako, thank you so much. Well, here's a look at where U.S. forces are right now in the Middle East. In the eastern Mediterranean Sea, there are 3 destroyers. In the Red Sea, there are 2 destroyers. And in the Arabian Sea, there is the USS Carl Vinson, a carrier strike group, including an aircraft carrier, 3 destroyers, and a guided missile cruiser. And heading to the Middle East right now from the Indo-Pacific Command, the USS Nimitz carrier strike group, including an aircraft carrier and 3 destroyers on that. They just passed what's called the Malacca Strait, a passage between Indonesia and Malaysia. And the number of American troops in the Middle East right now, approximately 40,000 U.S. forces total. In Iraq, there are about 3,000, and in Syria, there's about 1,000.